What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have an amazing guest. He is the voice, the ESPN voice of Spartan. He is also the part of the crew of Tough Race TV. He is also a Daily Burn trainer and two-time captain of NBC Spartan. Guys, please give me a warm round of applause for the one and only Kevin Donoghue.
Something tells me that your resting heart rate's a lot better than either of ours.
You never know, man. It's good. You never know with this pandemic how people are doing. So, I mean, I could have been 300 pounds right now and you didn't even know it.
So how you been, man? How are things going?
I've been good. Yeah, I mean, it's I guess as good as anybody could be in in the year that's been 2020. Just for every bad thing that's happened, I've the counter to that, the yin and the yang is, bad thing happened, then you get hit with a blessing. So it's been a lot of tough things followed by a lot of amazing things as well.
Totally hear you on that, man. Totally hear you on that. So I definitely would love to dive in a little bit on that topic. So saying that tough things, great things, what did that look like for you, especially during the beginning of that pandemic? I know also too, we got connected with High Rocks. We had some stuff going with High Rocks. That kind of fell out. How did that continue on for you? What were some of the things you dove into to keep yourself afloat, to keep yourself moving during these times?
Yeah. So for example, this year I was supposed to be hosting my own podcast through Spartan, right? We're going to be starting this whole new podcast, very similar to yours, health and fitness related. It was going to be a paid gig where I was coming into Manhattan for about, 2 or 3 times a week with a studio on Park Avenue. And it was supposed to be this whole big thing. And, we obviously were expanding with our U.S. National Series for Spartan. There was the involvement with High Rocks and so many other opportunities that were going to happen. And I'm boarding a plane to go down to San Antonio, Texas. And I get an alert on my phone that the race was canceled. And I mean, this was literally, I was just handing my ticket over to the TSA person to let me go on the jetway. So I immediately pull it back, get a refund on the flight, head home. I'm like, okay, I got a race in Vegas next week. That gets canceled. Then the next one, then the next one. So there was a point where I was like, okay, I had my whole year planned out with all these amazing things and it all stopped. So the good thing about that was I've been traveling between 65 to 80,000 miles a year across the country and across the world for, the last 5 or 6 years. So I didn't know what it was like to kind of just be at home and have like a life within my community, from Friday through Monday. So all of a sudden this whole new world at home kind of opened up to me. But with that, all the job opportunities I had, I mean, like you all, I'm a trainer. I rely on my personal clients to make a significant part of my income. That all shut down. So what was I going to do? My racing career shut down. My training career shut down. My media career shut down. So one weekend I was supposed to be in Madrid running a race, hanging out in the Mediterranean, enjoying life. And I was sweeping floors in the lumber section of Lowe's because for $14 an hour, just so I could keep a check coming in.
Wow.
And I looked at that and I'm like, be a whole lot better to be in the Mediterranean right now than sweeping sawdust. Sawdust and ripped open bags of fucking concrete at Lowe's in Chester, New York. But I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of people right now with no job.
Yep.
I'm like, I got a job like 10 minutes from my house that was deemed essential. And I have something coming in. So for me, I was like, all right, that's a huge blessing. And that's kind of how it's been. It's been lots of different like hustle jobs and opportunities that I had to create for myself and go out there and do just so I could manage until we started to come back online again.
You know what I do love? The fact that, you have a name for yourself in the industry. People know you, you're a talk person for some big, competitions and shows. You've appeared in many things. You yourself as a top level coach. Not so often do you see people actually accept the fact that they have to go and now work for a Lowe's or another place for a certain amount of time because they hold themselves so high up. So I have to give it to you because that is definitely not the easiest thing to do. But obviously with the time being, there are certain things we have to do, in order to keep ourselves afloat. So kudos to you on that, because I guarantee there's a lot of coaches out there and a lot of individuals who just because out of ego or not wanting to say, oh, I don't, probably didn't do something like that. So definitely an example right there.
You know what? I think you could find pride, and we all have our pride and we all have our egos. But I think no matter what you do, if you're able to switch it in your head, you could find pride in whatever job you take. So, for example, I haven't had anybody tell me, "Hey, go sweep the floor," since probably I was in 8th grade, right? And so, if I was asked to do a job, I was like, "Okay, I'm going to do that job as absolute best I can." I'm going to make that floor, and that area looks so awesome that they're going to be like, holy shit, like this guy really like takes pride in his work. And through that, you find that self-esteem and you find that self-worth, and it'll let you, rise above whatever kind of egos or preconceptions you had about like what it was to be yourself, and to go out and redefine that with the same principles that made you great at whatever it is you were doing in the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned, that verb, right? Like redefine, right? Well, so I feel like so often people are afraid to kind of buck the normal trend of like what success is. And, they're afraid to be malleable with the circumstances that they're given, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air to be able to hear someone like yourself, as Anthony said, like, listen, I got to do what I got to do. Right. Like, and we were talking about it on our last podcast about, people lacking, I should say, resiliency or like grit. A lot of people use that word grit. And in my opinion, and Anthony, I know feels the same way. It's like these hard times, right, are really what makes us such great human beings, right? It's like the adversity that we have to face and then get through so that we can really appreciate the good times.
It's funny. It's like I was just thinking about the show The Walking Dead, right? And obviously the
Never seen that
antagonist.
show, so don't spoil it. No spoilers.
I won't. Yeah, I won't.
Okay.
I'll try not to play any spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, but even though they're 10 seasons in.
Yeah.
He's like, try catching up, Josh.
Yeah,
you're gonna have a lot of good luck with that.
I mean, they stopped that show like 3-4 years ago. They're like, listen, if you haven't watched that, man,
I don't even think sitting through the entire COVID, I don't even know if you'll be able to catch up.
It's pretty.
I watched Game of Thrones. I did watch Game of Thrones for the first time.
So my original point was in that show, like obviously the obvious antagonist is, the zombies, right? And people trying to avoid that and stay alive. And obviously the other antagonist is the lack of technology and comforts that everybody's used to, right? But the beauty of what makes that show amazing, and it's not after a couple episodes, you'd be like, okay, fucking zombies, like, I'm over it. But what makes that show amazing is the change, and like you said, the malleability and the adaptability and the resilience of the characters. People in the beginning of that show who were weak, became strong. People that were, convicts and the dredge of society and, society's point of view, now become heroes. People who were heroes and upstanding citizens in the previous world now became the villains. So through that vehicle and through that environment that they had to deal with, it brought out all these different parts of what people were. So if deep inside you were a really good person, but you were just going through some rough times and had some, some hard circumstances come your way, it gave them the opportunity to kind of redefine themselves. And some people that had everything maybe handed to them, or things were great and they thought they were great and they thought they were wonderful people, and they got hit with adversity, and all of a sudden the bad stuff really started coming out. And those characters evolve over the course of the show. And we've kind of been like in a mini version of that, like people who maybe thought like, hey, I'm not really that strong of a person. I'm maybe not that resilient. I'm really not that tough. All of a sudden look back over the last 9 months and be like, shit, I just survived that. Like I did whatever I had to do and I got through it. Like I'm a better person than I thought I was. And I think that's one thing that we could all gain out of this. I hope that's what a lot of us gained out of it, and not the reverse of that.
Definitely, I say it all the time that COVID is going to be is testing, especially when it was heavy pushed on, all the restrictions. It was definitely testing a lot of people's characters, and I think you're seeing a lot of the people's, true side coming out now. seeing what they're doing, how they're approaching it, how they're handling it, you know, how they're going about it, and you know, what it's gonna set, how it's gonna set them up for the future.
Yeah. It must have been so rough for you guys hanging on a beach in Miami.
Well, we couldn't go to the beach.
In your man thongs, like, you know, wherever you wanted to go, getting a tan.
It was actually,
like,
it was terrible because I would like go to some of my clients' houses to train them on their balconies, and they've literally look at the beach, and I just looked at it and I was like, fuck this. There's not a single person other than maybe like a couple of cops. I'm like, all I want to do, it's April and May. It's the night, one of the nicest months to be in Miami, and I can't even go to the fucking beach.
See, for him is the tease, because I live in South Miami, so I'm 20 to 30 minutes away from the beach. So
it's just
him,
law firms and dentist offices where he lives. But
take that stroll down to get a root canal.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting here, you know, in Miami, man, because there, you know, it's not just, you know, personal trainers and you know, health and wellness practitioners in general, but a ton of people in hospitality here, right? Hotels and bars and restaurants and clubs. And, you know, for that, I feel really, really bad for them because, I mean, luckily we can kind of make an adjustment if we have to. We can train people at their houses or we can do it over FaceTime. But like, if you're a waiter, what the fuck do you do? You know, like you literally have no job. You literally have no income, you know? So then you do become reliant on the government, and it does become a lot scarier because obviously the funding hasn't been there that a lot of people have hoped for.
Yeah, I mean, and with the people that did have money and had the ability to work remotely, you know, like, hey, yeah, we're supporting, you know, local restaurants and we're ordering out food, but, you know, it's like, hey, thanks for doing your part, but we need to get back to work because this is not cutting it. And a $1,200
one-time payment,
stimulus check, one-time payment, you know, obviously we still might be getting another one, just does not cut it. I mean, I had to, you know, approach my landlord at the time. I've been renting the same house for 10 years. And that's a whole nother story, which has a very good ending. I said, hey, listen, I'm like, you know, like legally, I don't even have to pay you rent right now for like the next 3 months, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to give you what I can and then make it up on the backside. And luckily I had somebody I could cooperate with and I've had a long-standing relationship that was great. But you had some other people that are like, yeah, I didn't have to pay rent for 3 months, but then, you know,
then I got evicted.
August and September rolls around. It's like, hey, you know, you got to pay a big check. Like people needed money coming back in. So it's been really tough for a lot of those people. And, you know, I mean, you and I, you know, man, we're all very fit people, right? So I had the ability to go out and, you know, chop firewood, you know, be a handyman, move people, you know, work at Lowe's. I found an opportunity where I was going in the bushes at a local golf course, collecting thousands of golf balls because you could resell them, you know, in mass quantities. So I collected 5,000 golf balls, right?
That's
That's
a Gary V mentality.
Golf balls are the new trading card. That's our next.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. So, I mean, literally crawling. So I was actually being able to use my physical fitness to get out there and earn money. I live on a lake, and I rented kayaks and paddle boards when the weather got warm out. So I had all these opportunities. A lot of people didn't have those advantages or the physical acumen to go out there and be able to execute this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was very blessed. And that was another one of the things. Like, you know what? Like, yeah, my other jobs that I've worked my whole life for to get to that level are, you know, at the very least put on pause. But at least I had the ability and the blessings to go out and do these other things. So, you know, it was hard for me to complain because there's other people that need to feed their families and pay their mortgages and a lot of other things. And, you know, I had a very low level of responsibility that I was able to maintain.
So what would you say is the biggest thing you learned from this, from going from, you know, having this position and, you know, doing all this stuff, traveling, you know, obviously, you know, we all know that you've really obtained some really big successes, and, you know, congratulate you on that. And now immediately drop to, you know, doing other things that may be uncomfortable, but you know you have to do them, and you became resilient to doing that, and knowing that you had to do it and apply it every single day to just be able to survive. What have you learned from this whole experience?
I think I'm still trying to figure that out. And the way I'm going to put that is, before all this stuff happened, every single day I knew my why, right? My why was TV, was training, and it was getting ready and staying prepared for races every single day. Like I woke up every single day, and if it wasn't racing, it was recovering from a race or getting prepared for a race. So I'm racing 30 to 40 times a year. Wow. And in between that, I was doing obviously the TV episodes, studying lines, working on material, working on bits, doing all the things I needed to do to have material going to those. So every single day I had this big why. I knew what I was. And then it was gone. And then I was like, what the fuck am I without all the stuff I was doing? Like, I don't know what to do with myself. So I really had to look deep intrinsically and figure out my why. And a lot of that was, it gave me a chance to step back and spend a lot more time with my family. Like I don't have kids, but my parents are close by. I have nieces close by, a couple siblings that are still close by. So I spent a lot more time with them, spent more time with my friends, spent more time looking at myself and trying to do things that just made me a general everyday better person. And that's obviously still a work in progress, but I think finding something other than your job or your sport to give your motivation to go out every day and be happy. And again, it's not something I completely figured out yet. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. I feel like a ton of people, including myself, are kind of going through that, right? Like, okay, if something like this was to happen again, how can I make sure that me physically I'm prepared for it, right? Like, what are some ways that I can make sure that I'm still able to get my exercise in? What are some ways I'm able to like take care of my nutrition, right? And like, one of the benefits I feel that I've at least seen with some of my clients is like that they have been cooking from home more, right? So that's a plus for a lot of people, right? Is like that they're able to do things like spend time with their family. But what are some tips or some pieces of advice that you can give people that are kind of going through the same situation, like trying to figure out their new why? Like when obviously all of that background noise that you had going on in your life, as important as it may be with races and traveling and TV appearances, right? Like it didn't necessarily fulfill maybe who you were deep down, and again, I'm just kind of extrapolating and making assumptions. But for people who are kind of going through that and saying, okay, well, if all the things that I know about myself are taken away from me again, how do I figure out who I am? What are some pieces of advice that you could give those people?
I'd say one of the biggest things that you could do is start by helping other people. Do something nice for somebody else every single chance you get an opportunity to, because nothing will make you feel better or give you more purpose than helping out another human being and just being good to people. And I think when you do that, you invite the best kind of people into your life. You help someone who maybe never got smiled at the entire day. Maybe you put a smile on their face.
Especially with all the masks wearing now, it's difficult for people to see those social cues.
What you've noticed though, every time, you smile at somebody with a mask on, you could always tell by the eyes, right? Yeah. I got these really squinty, like Puerto Rican eyes that always like, you could barely, they're like little slits, right? So you could always see my Spanish, like little slits on the side. And I got my little crow's feet. So you could always tell by the eyes when somebody's smiling at you a lot of the time, right? So give somebody a smile. Just be good. I mean, it sounds so simple, and I hope it doesn't sound cliche, but if you do one thing for somebody else, you're going to invite a lot of good people into your life. You're going to a lot of positive energy. And you know what? I don't know where that's going to go, but generally it goes someplace good. And that's a great place to start.
I agree with that 100%. I definitely agree with that. And now more than ever, besides COVID, with all the times being, all the stuff going on, I think there has to be, more of that, people coming together and being able to socialize, connect on a real level and just be human beings, love each other, be happy. And obviously, it all sounds nice and pretty and we don't live in a perfect world, but I think we can all step up and do a better job of just being able to show up as good moral human beings. With that being said, what have you seen around your community? How have you seen your friends, your family? How has that been for them experiencing what you experienced? Did they take it lightly? Did they take it hard? And were you a voice or help for those people in your community?
I think there was people that were a voice and helpful to me. There there were some really dark days. You know, it was usually I'm used to, people relying on me for certain things. I found myself relying on other people for a lot of like an emotional boost. My parents live about 5 miles away. They're retired, and their schedule barely changed. Like for them, like life almost kind of stayed somewhat normal, where other people, their whole life switched from the daily commute into New York City, and now they're doing it at home. So there were so many different switches, and how I relied on other people relied on me. I kind of lost track there. What was the original question?
So basically, like, how did you see your community, the people around you, family, friends, how did they take the whole COVID situation happening? Did they take it lightly? Was it hard on them? How did that happen for them? And how did they approach that whole situation when it first started?
Yeah, I think in the community in general, a lot of people, first off, got really nervous by things they were seeing in the media. At the very beginning, I was like, hey, this is not going to, stop me from doing the things I want to do. And that was pretty naive, because pretty soon everything that I wanted to do got dictated to me, whether I wanted to or not. And I'm like, how bad is this really? And so I think at the very beginning, when we all got shut down, it was all kind of a big shock. But I think people really rallied together and were super supportive of each other early on. And I see you guys nodding. It seems like you kind of had the same experience.
Oh yeah.
Then as the weeks went on, and you're watching the different kind of results and the different attitudes of people from around the country, around the globe, and then how things started to like kind of stretch out, and people are getting out a little bit more, and we started to know a little bit more about what this was. I think there was a different degree. There were some people that still remained very cognizant of the rules that we got when it first started. And then there was a lot of other people like, I just got to live my life. So depending on what your personality was, and your level of understanding or fear or trepidation to COVID and what was going on, I really think that kind of dictated how you reacted to it and how you evolved. I started doing essential jobs immediately. One of the jobs I had was when they were turning the Javits Center in New York City into a giant hospital. I was working at a construction site next door doing temperature.
I think we lost you there. Hold on one second. Hold on. Can you hear us? I don't think we can hear you. Cut out. Did it mute? There we go.
All right, now we got you back.
Hear you.
Perfect. I'll just get back to the beginning of what I said when I saw that.
Perfect.
You ready?
Yep.
So I was exposed to this outdoors in public very early on, right at the beginning. I was working at the Javits Center in New York City doing temperature testing for construction workers who were next door to the makeshift hospital that they were making. I was working at Lowe's. So I was around people the whole time. So, I had my mask on, but my level of comfortability with this got pretty good very fast. I wound up getting COVID very early on, lost my taste buds for like 2 weeks at least. Everything, my sense of smell, everything wound up coming back. So I kind of went through it. So at that point, it was just like, all right, I'm like, I just got to live with this. But not everybody feels that way. So I have one close friend where someone that she loved dearly, he died not from necessarily COVID, but from the treatment they gave him. They put him on a ventilator too fast. He got a lung infection that spread to a limb, that had to amputate a leg. And unfortunately, this very talented guy lost his life very prematurely because early on they didn't know what to do properly. And so she's extremely sensitive to this because she lost somebody due to complications of all this. So I just can't talk, hey, yeah, it's not a big deal, because to her, it's a very big deal. So I think no matter what your level of comfortability with this is, you always have to, be respectful and cognizant that the other person might not feel that way. So I'm not saying don't go around trying not to offend people, but it's important to understand until you really know how they feel about it to, I wouldn't say be politically correct, but just show some discretion on how cavalier you are about it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part to make, right? Because perception can become reality, right? And everyone's perception is a little different based on their own environment, as you were just mentioning. And I feel just across the board, not just with COVID, but with a whole lot of things, politics, what people do for their job, their social media status and notoriety, all of this stuff, right? It's like there isn't a whole lot of understanding in 2020, right, about where people have come from and where they're currently now and how that kind of shapes their thought process behind whatever the topic may be. So how do you personally, take that into consideration before you go ahead? Because, in the social media era, everyone's ready and quick to jump to conclusions, right? So how do you individually kind of handle that and make sure that you're, when the time is necessary, taking a step back and kind of looking at everything from a bigger picture?
Yeah, as far as social media went, I tried to take the approach where I would just, I tried to just post things that were positive. A lot of those things were posted from things from like the outdoors.
I love those posts, by the way. They're
yeah.
great. It makes me miss Central New York, man, so much.
Yeah,
no color on the leaves down here.
No,
not too much.
Palm trees.
That is right.
You do got some nice flowers though. Like you get pretty flowers.
He's like, I don't know what you guys are complaining about.
I get those for like a couple weeks and then they're done. But it's like, hey, it's beautiful everywhere you go. It's just always a little different. Right. I started posting actually less on social media. Just I had less content to post, and I also didn't want to prophesize to a lot of people on how they should be living their lives. Because like, I don't know what you're going through unless I'm talking to you personally. I really don't have an idea what's going on. So even if I saw a post that maybe was somewhat different than what I want, you can always find like something that you find positive on it and comment on that, right? And leave a positive note for that. Just but be clear with it. And if it's kind of like that old saying, like if you don't really have too much to say, nice to say, but you probably shouldn't say it at all.
Yep.
But the other thing is you got to know your audience, right? You got to be able to read the room. And if you're in a room where your opinions completely differ and you don't really want to pick a fight, just measure your words a little better. Take some time, and if you can't figure that out, don't hit send and just back away. And there was plenty of times where I just laid off of social media for like, for the most part, other than liking a couple, outdoor things or things that I liked. I would lay off it for days at a time and just wouldn't go on it.
How did you feel on the, like, now kind of having taken a step back for a couple of months? Like, have you noticed a difference in like your own emotional state?
I wish I wish I had those really awesome things that we were doing in the racing and the media world to post. But at the same time, going back to the original part of our sentence, it made me recreate, like, have to think about, hey, why am I on social media?
Mm-hmm.
Is it to make money off certain social posts and to put out my agenda, so I could progress professionally? Or is it just to like show people, hey, this is kind of like what I like doing and this is my life, and I want to share it with you, and that's where I just started like posting more pics from like nature, because that was really what kind of like I was doing, and I didn't want to get into a whole lot of other stuff. Everybody has their own comfortability with that, and I'm never telling anybody what to do. But for me, it was nice, like emotionally, just to take a step back and not have to like feel like, okay, I got to post today because sponsor X wants this, and I'm trying to build momentum for TV job Y, and I really need to, promote myself for this Z. I just, let it just all go. And then, hey, if people still like to follow me, great, whatever. But once I stopped losing the ability to make money like online. I would just, somebody just tried walking in the door while I was here. I just had to shut it. Sorry about that. But once I stopped losing the ability to really kind of start hustling online for those sponsorships and the other things I needed to do, it was just like a whole lot of pressure gone, and I didn't care about it anymore.
I think we can all agree that
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think we can all agree that, social media world has its highs, its lows, bads and goods, and like anything, one thing I did come to realize is also too, when you share content like that has to do with things you like, hobbies, who you are. A lot of people resonate and connect better with that. Believe it or not, you know, a lot of people actually, you come to find that a lot of people that maybe weren't connecting with you before will start connecting with you because they're seeing these different types of posts coming on that are actually more about like, okay, this is all other things I like to do, or I love nature, things that they might not have known because our pages were so business driven or so much one-way driven.
Hey, I got to pause this for just 1 second. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Go right ahead.
Hey,
Go right ahead.
What's wrong with the men's room?
They're both taken.
Okay, so one of the guys that works at the gym, nice dude. We're gonna talk about you taking a dump right now. So, fun fact: the bathrooms in the place were like filled up, and he like had to go. I guess real bad, so he just came in to drop a deuce.
When you gotta shit, you gotta go.
When you
Doesn't
gotta go,
matter.
you gotta go. You know. I didn't even know there was a bathroom in here. So just so you know where I'm at, I'm in the kitty room, right? So there's like creepy balloons and like little farm animals, and they're sitting by the little table. So I purposely angled the phone this way so it wouldn't look like I was a creepy guy in a balloon room.
Well,
You're on Epstein Island.
Hopefully that bathroom is not one of those little kiddie toilets either, because if not, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, it is. 'Cause he's a big guy. He's probably like 6'2". He's a big MMA fighter. He's a pretty tough dude. So I hope he's surviving in there.
So Kevin, let me ask you, fast forwarding to where you are now, obviously we're still in COVID. There's still certain restrictions, but a lot of things have shifted. A lot of things are changing. And obviously today we're going to see what's going to happen as well with the elections. But fast forwarding to today, where do you stand today? What are some of the things you are doing now that changed from the really hard restrictions we had with COVID? You having to, work with Lowe's and do and collecting the golf balls and all that stuff. Where are you today now? Obviously, I know you were talking about we mentioned about training, your gym. How is that going for you? What new things have you ventured into? What are you doing right now to just keep yourself going?
Well, actually, I don't have a gym. This is a gym that I just work out in because I just try to separate, work from my own personal fitness. So this is just a club that I'm a member at. But what's good is I've gotten back to training. Clients have started coming back and been able to pick up with the restrictions being, lifted from what they are. I mean, I have a different array of clients. So basically, no matter what people's comfortability is, I set a professional standard of this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat everybody the same way as if they were highly sensitive to this situation, because I'm going to certain people's homes that are very sensitive, right? And working with them, and they need to know when I'm working with other people that I'm taking those same kind of precautions. So that has allowed me to be able to come back online and kind of have a normal career as far as that goes. I've been in consulting with the first obstacle course racing fitness facility in the United Arab Emirates. It's called Desert Shield. Yeah, it's only the second obstacle course racing gym in all of the Middle East. And I've been working with them for the past 6-7 months, working on programming, working on marketing, working on all these different things. Took care of business, dude? You're good. You could be in the video. It's all good.
Thank you.
You got it, man. Great job.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
All good.
Oh, good.
He said it was a good one.
It's always a good one after you hold it for too long, right?
Yeah. So I've been consulting with them, and that's been a fantastic opportunity because the guys out there that are running this gym, there's great people. It's introduced me to a whole new different culture, a whole new different world of people who love fitness and love obstacle course racing. And so there's a lot of exciting things coming out there. And fortunately for me, I'll be able to go out in a couple months and work on a couple of projects in person, as opposed to just doing Zoom calls, once or twice a week. So that's been a brilliant opportunity that presented itself to me, which is fantastic. And then the house that I'd been renting for 10 years, I'm finally buying. I'm going to be going into contract.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I'm going to be going into contract this week. And this is after a tree fell on it 3 months ago.
Oh, shoot.
Wow. Everything
So-
good with the house now, or
It'll be 2 days from now. It'll be 3 months that a tree fell on it. Because the tree fell on it, I was able to get a lot of nice new things in and outside of the house I normally wouldn't have had because of
There
that.
you
So it was a
So the
it
tree
was the
worked in your favor.
exactly. It was
And now you have no more tree.
that's it. I
Fall
don't
on
have to
your
worry about
house.
this thing falling on my head. Yeah, I was in the house when it happened. It was pretty
geez.
nuts watching your dining room get caved in right in front of your
Holy
face.
crap.
Huge tree, but
The world
and
is ending.
it was the perfect microcosm of what 2020 was. Really bad fucking thing happens. Tree falls in your house, and then because of that, I get a lot of new things that are placed in there, and my landlord was finally ready to sell after that one because
yeah.
she don't want to deal with that again. So it was like, again, blessings in disguise coming from all over the place. So if you're
That's right.
listening to this now, whatever shitty thing happens, just accept it, embrace it, show gratitude for it because something else is good coming your way.
That's right.
How do I want to phrase this? How do you balance? I mean, given how you were traveling before, how do you balance your training schedule? You're still training people in person with all of that travel. It's something that I have always found to be, the most difficult part about what I do is when I have to travel. How do you take care of your clients?
Yeah, most of my clients I train throughout the week, right? So it's mostly like a Monday afternoon through like Thursday evening, maybe Friday morning. And for anything I had to do within the United States, it was always even if I had to go to the West Coast, it was easy for me to like hop a plane at like 1 o'clock, especially if I'm going to the West Coast because I gained the time. Head out to wherever I had to go, and then bump a red eye the next, that Sunday night or that Monday morning, depending on where I was at, and get back into town and keep working, and it was a nice way to kind of get back into the life too. So luckily for me, I was able to adjust my clients with my schedule. The people that I choose to work with are also people that accept the fact that I'm going to be gone from certain amounts of times, but there's very few times throughout the year where I'm, say, bumping out for like a week or 2 weeks or stuff like that. Those are seldom far and in between. So most of the times it's just weekend gigs, hustle out and hustle back. With the exception of the world's toughest race, Eco Challenge.
You did the Eco Challenge?
I was a assistant cameraman / producer on.
Wow.
So,
by the way, I love that. I had watched it twice. I had to watch it a second time on Amazon. I was like, one of my clients told me about, she's like, and she's a big cyclist. She's like, you got to fucking watch this. This is unbelievable. I'm like,
dude,
how?
It was amazing. So you remember in the first episode where the lead American team was in the boats?
Hammering it.
And then this guy asked him to like, why aren't you using your sails? And the guy gave a very like kind of condescending answer right before he had to drag his buddy through the jungle with a freaking leash.
I was
the guy asking the question.
That's so sick. That's
so
awesome.
he gave me this snotty, condescending answer, which is counterintuitive to kind of how the guy really is from what I know about him, heard about him. He's like really nice guy, worked really hard at his craft, like super competitive, but he wound up looking real bad after answering the question that way, and then crashing and burning, tanking the way that they did afterwards.
Can you explain what the world's toughest race, like the Eco Challenge, is for those people who don't know?
So the Eco Challenge was a big time adventure race that was being held about 2 decades ago that they decided to bring back on Amazon. I know, with Bear Grylls as the host. And basically what it is, it's an adventure race. It's more of an expedition with a clock on it. So all the athletes and the teams, there's teams of 4 with a person who kind of helps them out at these different checkpoints, make a 5th member. And they have to navigate with a map and a compass through the ecology of whatever area in the world they're at. And this one was in Fiji. So they started in a river and they had to paddle out into the ocean and sail to an island. From there, they're mountain biking, they're rock climbing.
Well, they were supposed to be mountain biking, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but man, that's a difficult.
Yeah. And just because they say, hey, you have to get your bike from point A to point B, doesn't mean that you're just riding like you're doing the Tour de France. There's some of the times it's a lot more complex than just biking. There involves whitewater rafting, involves, power hiking, running, stand-up paddleboarding, all these different forms of self-propulsion that these teams have to perform. Each one of the checkpoints and the areas they get to have a time limit on it. So they have to make sure that they're hustling. And if they get lost, there is no one to help them. So they have to navigate through everything.
And you have 10 days, right? Like you can rest when you want to rest. If you don't want to sleep, you don't have to sleep, but just try to finish it as fast as possible, right?
They actually had there was actually mandatory sleep for every 24 hours. You had to sleep at least 2 of those. So you literally had to use sleep credits because some of these teams were hammering through on maybe like a half-hour sleep and they just keep going. They were
that
actually
New Zealand team was like beasting it. That one guy's like the top eco racer in the world. That's on
right. Yeah, they're incredible.
Like, phenomenal.
Every day they were forced to rest and sleep for at least like 2 hours. Like they had to stop. But
how was that experience for you? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like
no, it's okay. It was it's funny. I did a podcast about this about 3 weeks ago. It was it was like COVID. It was the greatest the greatest yet most difficult, emotional and emotionally draining and physically draining experience of my life. It was, we were as a crew, we were doing this for about three weeks straight. Because when the first team finishes, you're still out there until the last team finishes, right? Or until the last team's on the course. So we were put in all the crazy conditions they were. I had a job as my first and most primary job was an assistant cameraman. And originally, like, I thought that just meant and was, pretty much told that was basically being like a super Sherpa. So I'd be carrying around the equipment and helping the camera crew I was teamed with to get them into all the gnarly spots that we needed to get into. In the mountains, in the jungles, in the rivers, in the oceans, you name it, right? But then I also had to learn the technical aspect of it. And I am not great with technology, So for me, it was like, imagine whatever it is that freaks you out, right? Like if you're not good at programming something, whatever it is that you think you're terrible at or inexperienced at, it doesn't matter what it is. Imagine having to do that on like no sleep for weeks on end in the middle of the pissing rain in the jungle, in the mud, in a river, in the middle of the night, on no sleep, on little food, and the food you have is kind of shitty food because it's like MREs. And every day, it's just getting harder and harder to focus and know what you got to do. And you got a checklist of a million things. And every time you think you got that right, there's 10 new things thrown at you. So for me, it was 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, get yelled at, accept negative and constructive criticism, do one thing right, and then get kicked in the face again. It was like that for 3 weeks. It was nuts.
Wow,
so work at Lowe's and collect golf balls or do that again?
I would do that again a heartbeat.
Now,
I'd still be doing it if they let me do it.
Being an adventure racer yourself, have you ever participated in something like that? Like as an athlete, do you plan on it in the future after kind of experiencing that from the production side?
I've done ultra marathons like in the Andes, down in Chile.
It's amazing.
I've done, the Spartan Ultra Beast in Vermont. As of right now, I really don't have any aspirations to do a really long adventure race, mainly because my career as an athlete right now, my kind of sweet spot for where I'm good is anything from, say, like a mile to about 8, right? Depending on like the shorter it is, the more physical fitness and like rep-based concepts I'll have in it. And the longer it gets stretched out, then obviously the more running. But my sweet spot is kind of 1 to 8. And my bullseye in that sweet spot is about a 5K, right? That's kind of like my bullseye. So if I go out and do an adventure race, the training that leads up to that takes me out of my sweet spot. The fatigue that I get during it will make the recovery after that so long. So that would take probably about 4 to 5 months of me really being kind of out of my element. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, I just think that at this time right now, because I'm clicking on all cylinders in my sweet spot, I'd like to keep doing that. And if I ever have a drop off, then it'd be time to explore some other things like a long adventure race like that. But for me, I really love the media side of it. I want to continue working behind the scenes. And,
yeah, sounds very
I
interesting.
love it.
All right, so what we got to do is we got to get Josh in there to do
Fuck
that.
no. 6 miles through 40-degree
Yeah,
water.
This guy hates
Listen,
running.
I grew up in upstate New York. I know what that cold ass water feels like. I moved to Miami for a reason. All right. Bathtub and hotter. Okay.
Oh man.
And that was the crazy thing about Fiji was on the first day, you know, we're out in the ocean and you saw how hot it was for that lead American team.
The American team had one guy had a heat stroke.
Right. And then you got up into these really high elevations and the water was freezing cold and people were going hypothermic. So you had all these different levels of extremes and people wouldn't think of that Fiji. They're thinking resorts. They're thinking like, you know.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe like an ATV on the beach, you know?
Yeah. They're thinking Miami with mountains, right?
Yeah.
Thinking Miami's with mountains and like, and I tell you what, like I spent 3 days on this island, this little like kind of private deserted island where they film all the Survivor episodes. So I'm like, you know, I'm there by myself and like two other
island
guys.
that they're on for the finale, right? Like when they cross the finish line. That's the same island they did Survivor on.
No, the finish line is called Mana Island. That's where the crew generally stays, and they have like a hotel. It's more of a resort island. The island where the last checkpoint was that I had to sit at for like 3 days is about 45 minutes away.
Oh wow.
And it's where they isolate all the people from Survivor on there. Dude, I was there for 3 days. I would never want to fucking go on Survivor ever. It is so boring.
Man.
It is so like it's so boring and really fast. You get over like how beautiful the water is, how many gorgeous shells there are on the ground that you can pick for your girlfriend. Once you've explored the island a little bit and you're just coming across like rotting dead animals and smelly water and just bugs and you're just like
all the beautiful aspects of tropical weather that nobody pays attention to.
God. I mean, it was so cool, but like after 2 days, I'm like, all right, I had enough. I don't know how fucking Forrest Gump did it.
So what's the wildest?
Poor Tom Hanks on that one island.
Yeah.
What's the wildest experience you had personally on that show?
I'd say the craziest thing that happened was the first night we were chasing the athletes. We had a lot of these towns and villages on the main island. There's the same name for multiple towns. So we had to go to one town called Vatukarasa. We got there. It was the wrong Vatukarasa. The one we had to go to was fucking 6 hours away.
Jesus.
So everybody's pissed off. We're pissed off at the driver. Like we're hungry. So it's like 11 o'clock at night. We're starving. We still got to where we got to go. And we're like, look, man, we got to pull over, get something to eat. And we see this like kind of roadside shack and all the places to go to eat kind of look like, these roadside kind of shacks, almost like like a food truck.
Mm-hmm.
So we see people out at picnic tables hanging out. So we're like, all right, we'll go over there. We'll get some food. So me and the cameraman, he's like this 65-year-old guy, good dude. And we walk up. We're like, hey, is it all right if we just sit down? Like, where do we go to order? And they're like, what are you talking about? Because most of the people there speak pretty good English. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, is this a restaurant? He's like, no. He's like, it's a funeral.
Wow.
I'm so sorry. I really apologize. We thought maybe this was like, like a cafe. They're like, no. We just celebrate, like really enthusiastically when somebody dies. Like they throw more of a party. And he's like, hey, do you want to stay and hang out? And as he's saying that, all you hear is, like, what the fuck is that? They're literally like right next to us. They were slaughtering a pig.
Pig roast.
Right, so they cut its throat. And they freaking stabbed it, and the pig's like, the pig's fluttering. And so I'm watching this pig get tuned up, like killed, and I know like, all right, first of all, I'd have to wait like 10 hours for that thing to be ready, and I'm like, I got 10 hours, and I'm like, you know what, like. I kind of lost my appetite actually seeing the thing gets freaking slaughtered.
And this is a funeral place.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what am I supposed to say? So we're like, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Again, sorry for your loss. Like, have a great night. And we got out of there. But yeah, that was kind of like really early on, one of the crazier things that happened.
Wow, that's wild, man. I mean, it seems like you've really led one hell of a life so far, man. I mean, between, you know, all the adventure races yourself and you know, getting to be on the production side of things with the world's most difficult race. That's what they call it on Amazon.
World's toughest race.
World's toughest race, right? I was
Eco Challenge Fiji.
Yeah. You know, I can only imagine how high your ceiling is going to be in the future, man. It seems like, you know, no matter what happens, you've really been able to, you know, shake the adversity, embrace the adversity, and make the most of it. We're almost at an hour, and you know, before Mendez sends you a couple of rapid fire questions, I personally want to say thank you for coming on and kind of sharing a little bit about the ins and outs of who you are and you know, what you, as you know, a person, as an athlete, as a coach, what you're really about, man. It's been great to hear.
Thank you. As you can see, I'm really crappy with technology too, because I keep knocking the phone down. But
It's all good.
It's
guys,
all
like,
good.
you know, today it's actually like, you know, I'll say for when, you know, like obviously Sarah's like, you know, today's election day. It's a very kind of unsure, very scary, you know, day for everyone, no matter what side you're on. I mean, hopefully we're all on the same side, that we love America, and we love our country, and we want it to be the best version, whatever it can be. And we all have obviously our different political leanings, but if people could just sit down and talk like we were today about positive, amazing things and find the good in people, and, you know, just talking to you guys today, it just totally elevated my spirit. You know, I went out and rode this morning, and you're on a line for a while, and you're looking at a lot of very dreary, kind of uncertain faces. So to get on here right now, you guys gave me a shot of positive energy that I hope I could carry right into 2021.
That's awesome. Where can people reach out to you, Kevin?
They could find me on Instagram. It's Kevin_Donoghue_. And on Twitter, it's @KDonoghueLives. So like anytime you want to send me an inbox, send me a message, like reach out if you have any questions about anything. You know, I love talking to new people, no matter who they are.
Awesome.
Awesome, brother. So I'm gonna hit you with 3 questions.
Let's
Number
do it.
1.
Hope you're ready.
Number 1. We'll start soft. All right. What is your favorite fitness tool in the world? And if you had to pick that one, would it be that one to only use?
If you were Tom Hanks on that island, what would you bring
Right
with you
now,
other than
it's,
a volleyball?
Yeah, I actually got a good answer for this, a legit answer. It's called a RAM. RAM. It stands for Recycle and Move. It's a piece of fitness equipment made by these great guys in Ireland. And what it is, it's a rubber cylinder that's hollowed out just at the end so you could grab it almost like a PVC pipe. It comes in weights from 55 to 44 to 33, all the way down to about 9 pounds. And it's an incredible piece of equipment because you could do so many different functional movements with it. And it takes up a very, very small footprint wherever you place it. It's about the size of a coffee can as far as the circumference of it. So to have a piece of equipment like that has a really good desired weight that you could do a very large quantity of exercises with is definitely probably my favorite, most important piece of exercise equipment that I have right now.
Sounds similar to the Viper.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, I know, right? I've never heard of that. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, so it's just RAM. You'll love it.
Great.
And it'd be a great piece of equipment for your gym as well. And they're also at Instagram. I think it's like @RAM Training.
All right, I'll check that out right after this.
Awesome. Number 2, what was the craziest competition you ever did yourself personally?
Craziest competition I ever did had to be the second season of Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge. We actually shot that show at an old Walking Dead site. If you're familiar with Walking Dead, we filmed it at Terminus, right? So to be in a place where, like that TV show was shot where people were literally getting murdered all over the place, and people's heads are getting chopped off, and then you're there and it's like this big Halloween crazy effect place, and to do it at night against all these crazy teams with the amazing team that I had, and to be successful. And, you know, MJ Acosta from the NFL Network is like, you know, the reporter there, and Nick Swisher from Fox Baseball was like a sideline reporter.
Wow.
Apollo Antonono is like, you know, yelling things out about my calf muscles. It was like crazy. It was nuts. Like, it was the most wildest thing I ever did. And then when it was over, I'm back at my house like 6 hours later, because the second we got eliminated, they put you on a plane and send you home, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like, is this my life? The next one would have to be probably $1 Million Mile, because you're out there with, like, you know, 1 second I'm like hanging out with Tim Tebow, doing the Tebow.
Doing the Tebow.
With Tebow, right? And then I'm zip lining off the top of a skyscraper in downtown Los Angeles down to a stage in front of, like, all, it was nuts. Just
That's
all,
insane.
I mean, yeah, just crazy ass times.
You have sure experienced a lot of things.
Hell yeah, man. I need that life.
I'm sure we could do a whole podcast just on your experiences.
Yeah, we need another one. You gotta come down to Miami for sure.
Yeah, this time
Dude, we'll bro out whenever we can, man, for
Yeah,
sure.
let's do it.
So last question. What is the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners today?
Oh, man. You know, we're in a crazy world right now with a lot of people at each other's throats. Forgive and forget and move on, and we're happy with your life.
Woo! Way to end that one.
I know. What an important message for today. One more time, Kevin, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on here. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. Again, I mean, the shot of energy you just gave me, like, going forward, is going to be awesome. And hopefully I see you at some events real soon in the future.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We'll come out and
we
support.
can support, you let us know.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, guys.
Likewise.
Until next time.